Welcome back everyone to 4-Stroke Hawks. Here we are, race prepping. So in this video I wanted to talk to you guys about preparing your motorcycle for racing. So we're gonna go to round 2 of two-wheel track days mini moto racing series, which also hosts Supermoto series. It's a lovely, really fast group of people that attend, and I wanted to walk you guys through step by step how do you prepare for going to track or racing. Either of the, all the theories that we're going to talk about here help either of the two in the type of events. For racing, it's a little bit more specific, but if you do it for racing, you can cover it for track. We're going to talk about suspension. We're going to talk about forks. We're talking about shock. We're going to talk about tire pressures. We're going to talk about checking your brake pads, fluids, and let's see what else. Maintenance, maybe a little bit. But anyway, before we head out to track, let's go bit by bit. I was pondering about how to make this video, but I'm going to try to do it in pieces. So for racing, you got to make sure that all your nuts and bolts are nice and tight, Loctite and safety fastened. So I Loctite the axle bolt at the tail end. I Loctite a bunch of a few other bolts as well. It is quite important to make sure that your chain has good tension. In these FS, it's 56 to 58 millimeters if you have something to measure it with. If not, I always like to do like a 4-finger measure on the other side where the little plastic rail chain is. I just put my fingers there, and if it's 4 fingers, give or take, the chain is in good condition. In my case, my chain is actually a little bit stretched out. I'm doing new chain. I'm waiting for it to come over. So as you can see, the axle is all the way further back. With time, you start tightening, loosening those, and like pushing the wheel further back and back and back as the chain extends. But anyway, you want to have a good set of tires. At the moment, I have maybe half life meat on the rears and the fronts. I've done 2 rears already to 1 front. I'm about to jump on a 3rd, so I think I'm gonna change the front as well. All right, a cool little tip that I copied from my friend Damiano over the track was a little bit of blue tape or any kind of tape that you can write on. Get yourself a marker and a tape. And what I do is I write down when I do the oil changes, the compression. It's just kind of the same text over here. I write down the oil maintenance every time I change the oil in the motorcycle, which is every like 2 to 5 hours, depending on how hard I'm riding it. The compression ratios and the rebound ratios of the shock at the back. So I have the high-speed compression, slow-speed compression, and the rebound. And every time I change them, I write them. The reason why I put another sticker here is because I was scratching away this. So I'm going to cut this out and take it out in a second. I also write down, and it's pretty important because this is really, I cannot stress this enough. Check your tire pressures when you're on track in the morning, in the afternoon, and at nighttime, especially for racing. It's going to be really cold in the morning when we get there tomorrow, and it's going to probably go up about 15 to 20 degrees, so the tire pressures are going to expand and change. I run a 24 psi off the warmers in the rear for the Metzlers, and I run 26 in the front, 25 in the front off of the warmers, expecting it to be a 24 hot at the rear and a 26 in the front. I try to run a 24 to 25 psi in the rear and a 26 all the time. So that's when I try to get off track, I try to measure it. Important, I go half a psi down or a whole pound down when I'm on the warmers, and I wait for the actual right temperature to get there at the track when I do a bunch of spins. So yeah, so get yourself a little bit of tape. Write your figures there, write your maintenance hours. I always do that. The person that sold me the bike, Kevin, he was writing the stuff on the swing arm. He was writing Newton meters and maintenance hours in the bike. So I'm super thankful for him doing that so I can continue maintaining this baby. Yeah. And I do something similar for the forks. I write down there on the left fork how much, and this is the stock suspension, by the way, for the Husky, whatever suspension you have, figure it out. I usually write my preload, which I run 150 psi with the shock pump, and then I have my compression and my rebound settings right now on the left fork written there, just cause. Make sure all of your little boards are torqued and that your suspension shocks are even. I had a crash a while back and I had to like loosen everything And there are videos out there on how to tighten the front axle down below to make sure that your wheel is perfectly aligned and the forks are not rubbing or obviously I'm exaggerating, but twisted forwards and backwards, or just misaligned by millimeters where it can mess up the sleeve of the suspension. Yeah. We can talk about this handlebar at some point. A lot of people are asking me about it. Rosamore loves it. Cool little reminder, check your brake fluid. Bleed your brakes. This is quite important. I like to bleed the brakes every 2 or 3 weeks. Just make sure that you loosen your bolt, you get your bubbles out. You do it at the bottom too in the caliper. But most importantly, after you bleed the brakes, grab something that you can wrap around, a zip tie or a Velcro, and make sure you leave your lever in. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a little bit of pressure, and that's going to push bubbles all the way up the system, all the way up to the reservoir. And I let it go in the morning of the race. That way the bike, the brake is like nice and tight. This is silly, but hey, hello YouTube. Another important part, I don't know if you can see me right, is going to be your brakes. Make sure that your brake pads are in good standing for a race. And if you have slides, and if you don't have them, buy them, because trust me, they're worth every penny. You just change the pucks every time you crash, but it's something quite good for racing or tracking altogether. Make sure your brake pads are in good shape. Make sure your disc is nice and clean. Make sure you go through with some brake cleaner beforehand, and make sure you lock tight these little bolts, the pinch bolts, and also the main bolt over there. Now, this isn't a maintenance video, but I do recommend that, especially in the Huskies, you change your oils I'd say every 5 hours, like 3 to 5 hours, depending on how you feel. But I like changing the oil in that beast every 3 to 4 hours. It's basically an insurance for your engine. Pistons are not that cheap. Maintenance is a pain in the butt, so I'd rather just change oil from time to time. I actually have a cool little deal with Blood Racing. Here comes the sponsorship. But yeah, I run with these guys to give me a good discount to race with them. I recommend them. Okay, you use whichever oil you want, of course. But I like this oil so far. I recommend it quite a bit. It lasts. It looks really good after. I don't know if it's the color because it's red or whatever, but I can really monitor the progress of the oil going from rich red, see-through transparent to darkening through the time. So it tells me where the oil is at when I look at it through the little glass of the engine. But go check them out at least. Also, this is silly, you guys know this already, but make sure you torque your bolts to spec. I try to, I went and got the manual and I got the specs of each torque and stuff like that. So I torque the bolts to spec if you want to be picky about it. Make sure your suit is in the car and the trailer ready to go. And make sure you've got your generator ready to go. That's quite important. Your tire warmers are ready to go, and your gas cans are with you as well. You're gonna need, if you're racing for the first time, you're gonna need a Jenny. Even if you go on a track, to get your tire warmers ready before you go, especially in these cooler days. Well, that's it so far. We're off to the track. Let's go.